Thanks so much for that introduction, Christy. It's wonderful to be here, even though just virtual. So, as Christy said, I'm Ashley Zumwalt-Forbes, and I'm the U.S. Deputy Director for Batteries and Critical Materials. I sit in the Department of Energy, specifically the Office of Manufacturing and Energy Supply Chains. So, for those of you who might not be familiar with the US government or familiar with that variety of acronyms and words I just threw at you, MESC, so Manufacturing and Office of Energy Supply Chains, was set up a little bit over 2 years ago to deploy bipartisan infrastructure law and Inflation Reduction Act, so Bill and IRA capital. And the accomplishments across those 2 years have been immense. Now, I cannot take credit for those accomplishments. I just joined on January 15th. And so some of you, if you know me at all, you might know me from Black Mountain Metals or Metals Acquisition Corp, or just generally kicking around the mining space. Very much still incredibly passionate about both mining and the critical material supply chain. In terms of my why for doing this, my why for transitioning to government, albeit for a short stint, not for my entire career, is I had a daughter 18 months ago, and I think it's so important to keep the why of doing work front and center. And for me, I want to ensure that I'm leaving the world a better place for her than what I inherited. So, on behalf of the Deputy Director for Batteries and Critical Materials and of Lola's mom, I truly appreciate the work that all of you are doing to actualize these supply chains and really throw your shoulder into the effort of realizing this enormous goal. We'll get into it if I can make my slides go. There. Okay. So we've covered MESC was set up to deploy Bill and IRA capital. Specifically, that's around $20 billion, which we will break down in future slides. But what does that actually look like? Like, what does it mean that we do? And that does mean something a bit different on any given day. But the overall goals of MESC are to, one, eliminate vulnerabilities in the US clean energy supply chains. Two, drive unparalleled social, economic, and environmental impact through programs and awards. I would like to do a sub-bullet to this and say something incredibly relevant and an enormous focus area for me is that economic impact piece. I'm extremely focused on ensuring that the investments we're making are long-term cost competitive and are able to get built, stay in business, be excellent contributors to our supply chain, and continue employing folks long past when we have made the investment. So there's end of my sub bullet. I'll get back to my list. But the third prong of kind of the MESC vision is to ensure the equipment and materials are available when needed. I don't have to tell y'all. You know, you work in this day in and day out, but certainly COVID brought up so many exposures within our supply chains and so many needs for future development. And this is truly a response to that awareness. And then lastly, the vision and goal of MESC is to reduce our risks of reliance on potentially adverse interests. So how do we do that? How do we accomplish these very broad, big goals? And it really is focusing on 4 key areas. So one, manufacturing. We are very focused on bringing back made in America. Number 2, supply chains. So really de-risking supply chains for critical energy system needs. 3, workforce. Again, not telling you guys anything you don't know, but just because we're able to build out the supply chain, raise the money, do this enormous task, it doesn't mean we're actually going to have people who have the training and the desire to work in these facilities. And so there's a tremendous amount of work around skilling up the appropriate number of folks to work in these supply chains and really drive the ball down the field. And then last, the manufacturing analytics backbone. And that really sits under all three of these pillars. And really what that looks like is an enormous data processing effort to identify where our weaknesses are and where our capital can be best deployed. So I'm gonna skip to the next one. Okay, so again, a lot of acronyms. The government loves acronyms. I have only been in the seat since the 15th of January, so many of these acronyms are new to me. So I feel your pain, and I will do my best to address them. But all of the acronyms on this chart outline different offices within the Department of Energy, all of which have capital available at different scales. So you see on the x-axis, they're highlighting commercialization. And on the y-axis, focused on technology readiness level. And so many of you might know LPO. LPO is often kind of considered the front door of the DOE. And LPO is the Loan Program Office. It offers affordable debt financing to various entities within kind of that clean energy supply chain. We are just ahead of LPO, or maybe behind. So potentially lower TRL levels, potentially less commercialization readiness. We offer financing in the form of either grants or tax credits, which again, we will address soon. But historically, the Department of Energy purpose has very much been focused on earlier TRLs, much earlier commercialization stages. And so the availability of both MESC and LPO represent real step changes in the ability for companies to scale that valley of death and really build true, scalable, real commercialized businesses. And for me, I think that's so exciting. So next one. Okay, so I highlighted that MESC has been around for 2 years. I have been around for 2 months, but MESC has funded 71 projects across 38 states. So these MESC is US specific funding. It can be non-US companies, but the projects themselves have to be in the US. So look, this is a lot to have been done in 2 years. You can see kind of the various colors. Hopefully you're not colorblind. I'm sorry if so. We'll need to find a better way to view this chart. But you can see from the various colors on the legend, the programs which were leveraged to fund these operations. Several of them I will be touching on today. Importantly, sorry, I'm always supposed to plug this, but this is the status for January 2024. We are very much not done. We have many open funding opportunities, which you can find on the MESC website, which we will get to soon. We very much welcome additional applications. My interest is in ensuring we are deploying taxpayer capital in the most effective and impactful way possible. And the way we do that is ensuring we get as many applicants as possible to really raise that quality bar and ensure we are being good stewards of the capital that we have been given. Next one. Okay, so I'm sure you guys see this chart and think like, oh God, is she about to walk through a very basic kind of supply chain chart? I'm not. I will save you that. A few things I'd like to call attention to. So we spoke about in the beginning, MESC was created to deploy Bill and IRA funding, so Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act. Y'all haven't heard a word about Defense Production Act, but it is on the slide and I will cover it. So Bill and IRA capital, you can see they stretch. So Bill goes from material processing, importantly, not mining. Bill stretches from material processing through battery manufacturing, and then pops up again on the back end with recycling efforts funding. So you can see it's about $6 billion and then $335 million available. Inflation Reduction Act. So you can see this stretches across the supply chain in the form of tax credits. So 45X and 30D. Defense Production Act. It is mostly as would be indicated by its name, but it is mostly stewarded by the Department of Defense. And you can see they do fund mining. The DOE application of Defense Production Act, it's specifically called Defense Production Act Title III, but the DOE access to DPA is in the form of heat pump financing. So you might have seen that on the prior slide. There are additional authorizations, just no allocations of capital from Congress. Okay, so this is the breakdown of the $20 billion. And so this is $20 billion sitting within MESC. So you can see on the left side of the step chart, 10 billion in the form of tax credits and rebates, 6.2 billion sitting within batteries and critical minerals. So that's my office. And so again, that is in the form of grants. EV manufacturing conversion, that's $2 billion. The workforce program is $1.5 billion. DPA heat pumps, which we talked about, is $250 million. And so that totals into $20 billion to be deployed. We've deployed $2.8 billion to date. Importantly, and I think this is absolutely critical, this funding requires a private sector match. So at least 50% of the project must be funded by the private sector. Why is this important? It shows that the project operator has skin in the game. It shows that the project can also pass muster of XYZ financial institution in the private market. And additionally, it stimulates more activity in the economy. So one item to cover on this slide is how to apply for this funding. So we deployed $1.9 billion within the battery and critical materials supply chain late last year. We're currently in round 2 of that initiative. So here's how it works. We, being the DOE, publish an FOA, Funding Opportunity Announcement, we call it a FOA, on the MESC website, which you'll get a link to shortly. Within that FOA, there are delineated areas of interest, so AOIs, which folks can submit applications to. I always like to highlight these AOIs are all the way across the supply chain. So we're not just focused on one area, but rather the entire thing. Like we want to build out an entire supply chain in the US. So I'd like to just read to you what these AOIs are so that you can get a flavor of what we're looking for. And importantly, these AOIs came out of that data analytics backbone that we talked about on the first slide. And so this is really where we see the greatest needs for investment in that US supply chain. So 1 is lithium separation. 2 is recovery of battery critical minerals. 3 is battery material precursor processing. 4, battery cathode and anode manufacturing. 5, electrolyte salts and solvents. 6, cell manufacturing for small and specialized markets. 7, non-lithium based battery cell and system production. 8, other battery cell and system component manufacturing. So again, all the way across the supply chain. So on this one, I just said that we deployed $1.9 billion late last year. And then at the top of the slide, I say over $5.8 billion in public-private investment has been stimulated. How did we get there? So I referenced that there has to be a private capital match of at least 50%. In many cases, there's a much larger private capital match. And so this 5.8 billion is what has been stimulated through this grant program of both public plus private capital. So these are the 15 current portfolio companies. It again ranges cathode investments, anode investments, precursors, recycling, and mineral processing. Here's an example of one of our companies. It's a group called Mexichem. They are building a lithium hexafluorophosphate plant in Louisiana, and it is a first of its kind in the US. So it was a $100 million US government investment, over $300 million private sector match, 80 jobs created, 260,000 EVs enabled, and will produce 10,000 metric tons per year. So there are a tremendous amount of funding opportunities available. Please go to the MESC website and look at these opportunities. On one of the coming slides, there's a thing that you can take a picture of and it'll take you there. Or if you Google DOE MESC, it will take you there. Go to my LinkedIn, you'll find it there. Like, there are options for getting to this website. And there is money that you can apply for, so please do. I would love everyone's participation. This says comments were due March 4th. That is not true. We have extended that deadline and would absolutely love your comments. And so what is this? This is how to connect federal funding with private capital. So if you have thoughts on how best to match grantees with private capital, what you're looking for, what the needs are, really what instruments you think are missing in the market, please share it at this QR code. Okay, so I said MESC has been in existence for 2 years. Here's what we've done to date. So we have catalyzed over $7 billion of private sector investment. We've created over 8,000 jobs. 34% of those investments are in energy justice communities. We've trained over 500 students annually, and we've enabled 10 million EVs annually. This story is very much not done. In fact, we are only getting started. We would love to partner with you on accomplishments to come. So together, we can develop a domestic battery manufacturing industry that competes globally and wins. Thank you so much.